What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Golden State Warriors. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials in the description as well, and let's go ahead and get started. So the Warriors are off to a 5-1 start to begin the season, and we've all seen this before, right? This is a team that has dominated the Western Conference for years, while then taking a couple years off the last couple of seasons due to some injuries to Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, of course, leaving, Steph Curry having some injury issues of his own, and they've just kind of been rebuilding isn't the right term, but they've been retooling the roster, going into the draft with high picks, making different moves for D'Angelo Russell, whether it be trading for him or trading him away. And now it appears as though they've repositioned themselves as a potential contender in the West. And we're going to be talking about whether that is actually the case in this video. So we thought last year, I certainly thought last year, that what we're seeing now might have happened then. It was very high on the Warriors going into the season last year, and then Klay Thompson suffered a second significant lower leg injury where he tore his ACL one year, tore his Achilles the following year, and that really just kind of torpedoed everything that the Warriors were trying to do last year. They went out and they still traded for Kelly Oubre and tried to do something with that season, nearly made the postseason, made the play-in game, but ultimately the season just did not go the way that they had hoped that it would. But now the Warriors are doing exactly what they do. Once again, Steph looks like an MVP caliber player, just like he did for most of last season. But the difference this year is the rest of the roster. Draymond is still very, very good. Great defender, can really pass the ball. Still limited as a scorer, of course, but he is a perfect complement alongside Steph. Those guys have some of the best chemistry of any duo in the entire NBA. And they've just developed really good role players around those two guys. And that, for me, when I really think about this like Warriors era, I don't think about KD. I don't think about those teams, despite the fact that that 2017 team is probably the greatest basketball team ever assembled. I think about those first couple of seasons when it was Steph and it was Klay and it was all these other role guys and Leandro Barbosa out there making shots, and they just really did a great job of surrounding their core guys with players that made sense and that they, developed over the years. And that's what's happening for them again this year. They've got guys like Jordan Poole and Damian Lee who developed into nice secondary scorers, not like future all-stars or anything. People were calling Jordan Poole the third Splash Brother before the season. That's not the case. But these are good players that provide a scoring punch that they desperately, desperately needed, not only last year, but have needed for a little while now. They consolidated so many of the good things that they did to get Kevin Durant, which of course anybody would do every single time, but they've been trying to regroup and retool from that ever since, and I think they've done a really good job, and that is showing now this year. Like I said, we've got Poole and Lee. Andrew Wiggins has been a really, really good player for them since he came over from Minnesota. I think sometimes we forget how low the opinion of Andrew Wiggins was at the time that they made the trade, where it basically went, they lost KD, but they got D'Lo back. Then they swapped D'Lo for a pick and Andrew Wiggins, and not a lot of people liked the deal at the time because of the contract that Wiggins was on, and it was just, you really couldn't find that many people around the league that were going to defend Andrew Wiggins as a basketball player. But he has been an above average three-point shooter, a good defender for them, and provides them solid wing depth that they have needed since not only KD left, but really since they got rid of Harrison Barnes in order to get Kevin Durant. They've really lacked wing depth, and the improvement of Wiggins, not only statistically, but into a winning basketball player, has been certainly an underrated storyline with this Warriors team, not only to begin this season, but everything they've done since they lost KD. Like I said, I already talked about Draymond. I don't really need to describe too much about what Draymond does. He helps you win basketball games. He defends. The three-point shooting just doesn't exist anymore, and offensively he's not that much of a factor, but he's a fantastic passer, and again, fits really well with Steph. And then you just look up and down the roster, and it's like Kevon Looney, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Andre Iguodala, Nemanja Bjelica, Otto Porter. Some of those guys they brought in this offseason. Other ones, like Damian Lee, like Jordan Poole, like Juan Toscano-Anderson, developed through exactly what I think the Warriors were hoping would happen. I think they recognized once KD left that once that happened and then Klay got hurt, they weren't going to be like true contenders, but they wanted to make sure that they took the time to develop some of these guys into role players. And whether it be Juan Toscano-Anderson, whether it be Damian Lee, whether it be Jordan Poole, those guys have developed largely through the opportunities they were given when the Warriors didn't have anybody else to play. Eric Paschall's another guy that comes to mind here, even though he's not on the roster anymore, is guys that they really developed in that time period in which they didn't really have a ton of other options to put on the floor. And it's just a really solid group of role guys around the one guy that makes everything work, of course, that being Steph. But the really scary part for the Warriors for the rest of the Western Conference in terms of them being Western Conference contenders is they're not even at full strength yet. Jonathan Kuminga has barely been a factor. He's been dealing with injury stuff. James Wiseman still has not played this year. Moody, the other rookie, has really not been that much of a factor either, not because of health, just because he hasn't been in the rotation. And of course, Klay Thompson. Like, they're missing three and a half guys that are going to be really, really important to their year. Wiseman is the complete wild card here, apart from Klay's health that we'll get to in a second, where there's a reason this guy was picked second in the draft. There's a reason that the Warriors, one of the better drafting teams of the last 15 years, they built their quote-unquote dynasty through the draft, through getting Steph, through getting Klay, through getting Draymond. These guys know what they're doing in the draft, and they chose to pick James Wiseman ahead of LaMelo Ball for a reason. This guy is a talented basketball player, and it might not work out. There are certainly draft misses as well. When you go back and look at them drafting like Epke Udoh, right? 6th pick in the draft. But there's a reason why they picked him, and we see how good LaMelo is, and I'm sure part of it was fit. They had an obvious need at the 5 spot, but I'm not ready to just count out James Wiseman after a rough rookie year in which he was graded differently than every other rookie in the league, where he was called upon to make winning basketball plays, and he hadn't played actual basketball in so long because of the way his college experience went. So he's a complete wild card. James Wiseman could be a very, very good, like a borderline DeAndre Ayton level player 2 years from now, and he could potentially be a really nice rotation piece for them this year as well. Kuminga is a guy that I wasn't super high on during the draft process, and then I watched him during Summer League, and I immediately thought, how did we let the Warriors get this guy? He's big, he's strong, he's more skilled than I thought he was, and I kind of talked about that in that video where I talked about how important this like G League experience could be for players moving forward in terms of really developing them into high-quality NBA players. He's been really good. Or he will be really good, I think. And then, of course, Klay. Like, we're waiting on an all-NBA caliber player to return from injury. There's no way of knowing how good he's going to be when he comes back. There's no way of knowing if he's going to be remotely the same level of player. But it feels like, at least offensively, if there is going to be a guy that is a high-level player that's going to come back well from multiple lower leg injuries, it would be someone like Klay Thompson, because he's not blowing by anybody on the way to the rim. He's running around off screens, he's getting open jump shots, and he's knocking them down. That's what Klay Thompson does. Now, defensively, I would be shocked if he comes back and is the same level that he was when he got hurt in the 2019 finals, by the way, all the way back then, because at that point, he was one of the better guard defenders in the league. I'd be shocked if he comes back and is that level of player. But offensively, which arguably is where this team needs the most help, he's still going to be a huge, huge factor for them. I think by the time we get to the postseason, he really is allowed to get back in rhythm after he comes back sometime around the new year, it kind of seems like. And so ultimately, I'm kind of in on this Warriors group. If you're asking, are they truly contenders? Are they a team that is going to be a factor at the top of the Western Conference? I do. The biggest counter to that, to this point, would just be that the schedule hasn't been super rigorous. They beat the Lakers on opening night. They've been iffy. They beat the Clippers the next game. They've been iffy. 2 wins against Oklahoma City, a win against Sacramento, and then a loss against Memphis. That's their schedule so far. So, you know, I wish they were, you know, beating all the top teams in either conference, and that really would give us so much more confidence in their 5-1 record. But just in what I've seen and watching them play, Steph looks fantastic. The role guys are there, and they're missed. Like, I would not have been shocked if they started the season 2-4 with the guys that they're missing, and they've been really, really good. And here's the last and the final point. It always needs to be brought up with Golden State. This is a team that has championship experience. It's an organization that knows what it feels like to win a title. And as long as Steph is still in his prime, I don't think they would hesitate at all to go as all in as they need to try and get another title while they have Steph, because it's very rare for an organization to have a player like Steph Curry in his prime, a former MVP, and a player that you know you can win a championship with. There is evidence that if you put the right players around Steph Curry, you can win a title with him. And that's not an opportunity that I would imagine that this ownership group, this front office, going into this new arena that they've gone into recently, I don't think that's an opportunity that they're easily going to pass up on. So if they're, 30-8 partway through the year, they're going to make some moves to improve this roster. They might move some of these young guys and consolidate them into a more proven player. Would not be surprised in any way. And then the last point here is this feels like a Steve Kerr team. This feels like not on the same level of those early Warriors teams because the excitement level was different. Klay and Steph were younger. Draymond was a better offensive player. But stylistically, It feels like a team that fits well with the way that Steph Curry likes to play, with the way that Steve Kerr likes to play. There's a ton of movement. They look like they've been doing this for a while, and it's because they have. There is a system in place. There's a core in place that knows what it takes to play really good regular season basketball and really good postseason basketball. And if they are fully healthy, I think the sky's the limit for them. I think they can be a true contender in the Western Conference based off what I've seen out of them this year. But of course, I'm interested to see what you guys have to say down in the comment section below about that. And that is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you enjoyed it, again, make sure to leave a like rating on it. You can also check out my socials down in the description below as well. With all those things said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.